Imagine the North Shore in 1826. The revival fires of the Second Great Awakening were still burning when Benjamin Knight of Salem began holding church services in a small schoolhouse in Beverly Farms. And Mr. Knight imagined. He imagined that the small gathering could grow into a thriving gospel-centered church that would impact its neighborhood for Christ. And it did. The group became an official church in 1829 and began baptizing believers, sharing communion, and holding concerts of prayer. More and more committed their lives to Christ and were baptized over the next 70 years. The building expanded to accommodate the growing congregation, and it all began with a gospel-driven imagination. But in the early 1900s, orthodoxy was abandoned for universalism. The congregation dwindled to 15 people by 1938, but there was a small group of believers led by Deacon Day who imagined. They imagined what God could do if the gospel witness was kept alive. So they prayed fervently. And in 1950, they called Millard Froman, an evangelical pastor, to lead the church for the first time in 50 years. Froman and his successors, including William Nigel Kerr, Wayne Hill, Richard Schonert, and Mark Coleman, all imagined that God could expand his kingdom through the local church. The ministry of what is today North Shore Community Baptist Church has been marked by deep understanding of Scripture, a community that encourages and supports one another, and a commitment to spreading the gospel throughout the world. And it all happened because someone imagined what God could do.
Today we feel as though there is another opportunity for a major move of God. Essex County is one of the least reached counties in the U.S. It's estimated that less than 3% of the people in our county have a meaningful relationship with Christ. Imagine if that percentage were doubled or tripled over the next 10 years. Imagine if your neighbor began asking you about what's different in your life. Imagine if your life was renewed and your family was transformed by the power of the gospel. Imagine if homes were opened up, prayer was mobilized, skeptics were welcomed, leaders were developed, old divisions were healed, and churches were partnering together in mission. Imagine if there were a gospel movement on the North Shore. If thousands of people were meeting Christ, growing as disciples, and serving in gospel-centered churches. If our neighborhoods declared the reign of Christ and realigned all of life to His holy love.
I imagine God moving in our worship and people engaging fully in response.
I imagine wisdom to speak the truth in every area of life.
I imagine open hospitality to our neighbors.
Boldness in evangelism.
And more engagement in community needs. Imagine people desiring to work alongside one another and experiencing great joy in doing it.
Oh, that God would rend the heavens and come down.